Here we go, episode 94 of the Hardline Sports Talk. I'm Michael Merlo. I've got John Michael Masiri as always. Jam, it's been a while. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Yeah, I feel like a lot's happened since we last recorded.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously the elephant in the room. As you can see from my attire today, I'm very, very excited that this is pretty much done. We're still waiting on physicals and whatnot, but Aaron Rodgers is in the building today. He's wearing Jets gear. He's saying hi to the coaches and the owners and the front office and everybody. So I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. We got a busy show. Obviously, as you just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. That's finally done. The NFL draft just completely snuck up on me. And I feel like it snuck up on a lot of people because, yeah, ESPN has been talking about it for months. But in my world, and I think in your world too, I have not been thinking about the NFL draft. So we got the NFL draft, Aaron Rodgers, maybe a little baseball later on if we have time. And of course, the NBA playoffs are going on. And that's really where we're going to start here. And we could start with your Knicks, right? I think we could start with your Knicks, who are going to play Wednesday night tonight in Cleveland as they have a chance to clinch this series. Very, very interesting that it is 3-1. I am shocked by this.
Yeah.
Because the Cleveland Cavaliers are a very good team. They were the 4 seed for a reason. And they shoot the three very well. That's what they did during the season. The Knicks were not good at stopping the three, but this series has kind of felt old school, a lot of defense being played, but the Knicks have dominated really the last 2 games, and that's why they have a chance now to clinch this thing in Cleveland.
Yeah, and the way that the Knicks have done it, they've relied on a couple different people. Julius Randle hasn't been playing up to the standards you would want him to play at, and to be honest with you, like I think it's pretty much time we slap the choke artist trademark on Julius Randle. I don't even know if it's choke artist is the word, but he just doesn't show up in big games. You know, he's basically the NBA's Kirk Cousins at this point. But
Well, that's not fair. I think we should give him a little bit more time. No,
just saying, like between this series and the Hawks series, he's only
what?
shot. He's played. I think he might have played a playoff game in LA or in New Orleans. Actually, probably not New Orleans, but I think in LA he played one or two playoff games, something like that. And in his career, he's shot over 40% one time in the playoffs. So is not an efficient score at all in the postseason. But as the point I was getting to, guys are stepping up. Jalen Brunson, I mean, it's his team. I know some people might think of Julius Randle when they think about the Knicks, but I think at this point, Jalen Brunson, he's the point guard. He's the quarterback of that offense. It's his team. He's showing up in a big way, clearly helping out that team tremendously. And RJ Barrett has gotten better in every single game of this series, and he's been an immense help. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the defense that's being played, not only in this series, but around the NBA, I think it's pretty obvious that these teams just aren't trying as much in the regular season.
Yes, they're saving themselves for the postseason.
I mean, you're seeing
Is that what you're
79
saying?
points being scored. Yeah, basically.
I mean, it's nice though. I mean, we had talked about it a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago. The last time I saw you, they don't play defense. It's not entertaining, and this postseason has been a little bit better. Now you have some outliers. You have 136, 130 last night in Phoenix, but it has been a little bit better the defense, and especially in the series, you have an old school feel. You brought up guys stepping up. RJ Barrett, since they went back to the Garden, he stepped up in a big way because really he was getting blamed for why they were down 1-1 and almost blew the lead in game 1.
Yeah.
He was, the reason why Knicks fans thought that happened. So he has stepped up in a big way. They're chanting his name in the Garden, outside the Garden, in the city. That was a scene. And I mean, over the weekend, you had the Rangers and the Knicks there. New York was unbelievable.
Yeah, New York sports are definitely trending in the right direction. They have been for the past year or so. But definitely at like a peak right now. What I was gonna say about the just going on with some of the players in this series, I think Mitchell Robinson deserves a ton of credit. I
Oh
think
wow,
that
coming from you.
the way that he has dominated the paint in this series, Isaiah Hartenstein too, done a fantastic job. It's been surprising because I think, when you think about the Cavaliers, obviously you think about Mitchell and Garland, but the next two guys you think of are Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mobley's given Randall a tough time defensively. You could tell Randall's intimidated by Mobley, but in terms of the big man in Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, They've done a fantastic job. Josh Hart's came in, grabbed a ton of offensive rebounds. They've just been out rebounding and out muscling the Cavs in the paint this whole series and on the boards. And it's showing. I mean, I think that's a major, major reason why they're up 3-1. They're getting more shots. They're getting more opportunities. They're doing a solid job of not turning the ball over. Donovan Mitchell had a really rough first half in that last game. Big credit to Deuce McBride, honestly, coming off the bench. He was going toe to toe with Mitchell on defense, could really keep up with him well. He's a great defensive player off the bench. And Mitchell was turning the ball over. He had 5 turnovers at halftime. So, you could apply that pressure and make their star player stress out on the court. I mean, if that's not the key to success, then I don't know what is.
Right. Yeah, Mitchell was terrible on Sunday in game 4 at the Garden. He was bad. But yeah, you mentioned it. Mobley 14 points, Mobley 12 points, Allen 14 points. The big guys are doing their job. That looked like it could possibly be a mismatch for the Cavs where they could take advantage, especially with Mobley on Randall, because especially in those first 2 games, it looked like it was way too easy for Mobley, but they've slowed him down and they're up 3-1 and they have now, like, you don't want to get ahead of yourself because the series is not over. We've seen teams come back down 3-1, but the way things are looking for the Knicks right now, it is setting up to be something very special because, as we know, the Heat are up 3-1 on the Bucks right now, 8 seed over a 1 seed, and if they win tonight, they're going to go to the second round to play the Knicks if the Knicks were to win tonight. And it's just getting very interesting now. I saw the latest title odds in the East. They're very similar to what the 76ers have, their odds. So yep. It's getting really interesting.
Well, if I'm a Knicks fan and if I'm any other fan of a team that's in the playoffs that, is looking pretty good right now, I'm looking around the NBA and I think it's pretty obvious that the gap has been closed between all the teams in the NBA. I think that you see that there is a very highly competitive NBA, one that we have not seen in years. I mean, it's gotten better over the years, but I think it just keeps getting more and more competitive. And you're seeing an 8 up 3-1 over a 1 seed right now. And yes, Giannis was hurt, but Giannis played last game. I'm sure he wasn't 100%, but he was still on the court. He was still playing well. That's a huge deal. Jimmy Butler dropping 56 points. So you have an 8 beating a 1 right now. You have the Lakers who, sure, are they better than a 7 seed of what it shows on paper? Yes, but they're beating a team who many people were picking to make it to the NBA Finals in the preseason, in the middle of the season. People were all over the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are a great team. They're up 3-1. And then the Knicks, I mean, if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm looking at it and saying, hey, we were 3-1 or whatever they were, 3-0, whatever they were against the Celtics in the regular season. We could take down the Celtics. We could take down the Heat. We could take, they played well against the Heat. We could beat the Bucks if they, they play 7 games. They're going to be winded. We could beat the Sixers. Like, I really think they could take down any team. And I'm not saying that they will. I'm just saying the way the landscape of this playoffs has gone, I think anybody could beat anybody at this point.
Do you think that it's better? Like, and I was thinking about this last night as I was going to bed, actually. Do you think that the NBA would rather it be this competitive, or do you think they miss that super team and then, that kind of player or other super team that could possibly come and take them down, like we've seen in the past years with the Heat and then the Warriors, and, the Cavs taking the Warriors down, or trying to at least, because I think that brings more eyeballs, because right now when it's competitive and it's great and it's entertaining basketball for the basketball fan, but the non-diehard NBA fan is not going to turn and watch this.
Well,
they are going to watch that super team, that villain, right, and that hero.
That is a good point. Like, if you look at the Celtics Warriors series last year, I'm sure, I don't have the ratings off the top of my head, but I'm sure that compares nowhere near to the Warriors when they had KD and they were playing LeBron in the finals. Like, yeah, obviously right, star power is a major factor. But that's just talking about the finals. I just think from, it's always like a pro and a con to everything, and it's hard to pick what side. But if I'm the NBA, I would just ask, the way I would figure that out is I ask my fans what they prefer. And me as a fan, I definitely prefer the way it is now, where you're seeing these series going to 6-7 games, or, a 6 seed over a 3, a 7 seed over a 2. Like I said, there's an 8 seed over a 1 right now. Like, there's highly competitive basketball in every series just about, except for the Nets, RIP. But in the first round, what we've seen in the past years, past decades, whatever you want to say, usually a slumber fest in about half of these series. It's not that way this year, and I like it.
Yeah. Something, we're gonna move on here a little bit of the Bucks Heat series. Something I got a major problem with. Okay, and like Giannis missed 2 games, right?
Yeah.
And what was his injury? Like, was it
It
serious
was,
enough for him to actually miss a game or two, or was this the Bucks getting cocky and saying, it's an it's a 8 seed. We're gonna be okay. He can rest. Like, if that was game 5, game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, was he playing in those games? Because if he was, then that's a travesty that
yeah.
even these NBA teams in the first round of the playoffs are not taking it seriously. And I was going to say the same thing about Kawhi Leonard before we got the news this morning that it was a torn meniscus that kept him out. But if he was kept out and it was almost like he's a little banged up, he could probably play, but we're going to keep him out, that's a joke.
I mean, it's a possibility. He has a back contusion. I've never had a back contusion. I don't know what that's like. I'm not too familiar with the terms. I know it's not a break. He didn't break his or tear anything in his back. I'm sure what it sounds like is probably just a badly bruised back. Yeah. I mean, if it was the finals, I'm sure he would be playing. So I'm sure that they were like, yeah, could he play? Probably. Do we want to risk that he could get hurt even more? Or, is it just not worth it to go up against an 8 seed and do this? I don't think it is. They probably did the same. They probably said that. And, that's something that they're going to have to deal with if they end up losing the series. I don't think anybody's counting the Bucks out still, even with the 3-1 lead from the Heat. But it certainly is a question that I would like for somebody to answer one day, because he probably could have played. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, probably could have played.
And they won one of the games that he didn't play in, and they lost the third game.
Yeah.
But, still, I am rooting so hard for the Heat to do this. Like, clinch it tonight. End it in Milwaukee.
As a Knicks fan, and every Knicks fan out there, I mean, I think everybody's rooting for the Heat as well.
No, 100%. But as an unbiased fan that doesn't really have a team, I want the Heat to win this game tonight.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler they're ranking this game as, and by the way, I don't really agree with this because I'd have to really go back and do research on this, but they were talking about it being one of the greatest postseason performances of all time. And if you're ranked all of them, I guess he's on the list, but even mention him with a Jordan flu game or, other of these huge games LeBron put up.
Right. Because you got to talk about the magnitude of the game.
Right.
Giannis put up 50 in a NBA Finals clinching game, in Game 6. So it certainly was an amazing performance, especially when you look at this. You look at the stat sheet, you say, "Wow, that's amazing," but then you factor in the clutch shots he made and how the game ended up finishing. When they came back, they came from behind a little bit, and then they pulled away late when he hit the step back 3. Played fantastic. So certainly was an amazing game, but. First round, game 4, I think that needs to be factored in.
And I saw this edit too, which is kind of funny on TikTok, and it was Jimmy Butler missing. Remember, he missed that shot 20 seconds to go, wide open 3 against the Heat, against the Celtics last year at home, and it just hit the front rim. And then it was a couple of days ago, the game where he hit a big 3, and it was this is what we got now.
Right.
That was pretty cool. And they're doing this with that Tyler Hero who got hurt.
Yeah.
Did he get hurt in the play-in or game 1 of this series? He got hurt early.
Caleb Martin was Tyler Hero 2.0 the other day. He was showing up in a big way. So
he had a couple of big threes. Bam Adebayo late in the game stepped up, played some good defense on Giannis. So it's an impressive run, and we'll see if they can do it, especially for the Knicks fans here. I know it's big, and let's see if they can take out the 1 seed Bucks. Let's move over a little bit to the Western Conference. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, totally cool.
I think that every Laker fan and every LeBron stan, which I'll probably say I'm still a LeBron fan, should thank Dylan Brooks for this, not resurgence, but this just overall play from LeBron James and the Lakers, because I think you're crazy to not think that listen, it's the playoffs, and LeBron's got a big legacy, and he wants to win. This is an important year for him. But to think that it's not a little bit of an added motivation that this kid, this nobody, is talking crap, and now we're seeing what he's doing and what this team is doing, I don't think it's a coincidence.
No. And I was going to say, I'm glad you brought it up. If I'm in that Grizzlies locker room, I don't know if it's happened already and it just hasn't gotten out of the closed doors yet. If I'm in that locker room, I'm losing my shit on Dylan Brooks. Like, I'm like yelling in his face, like, what is wrong with you? Like, shut your mouth. You're trash. Like, you're not a good player. You talk all this crap because, he goes out there. If he's a freaking star of the team, sure. If he's the second best player on the team, sure. Third best, maybe. He's not even the top 5 on that roster. So if he's just going out there, running his mouth, poking bears with everybody, and yeah, it's a very smart idea. Let's go. I'm going to go talk trash about the greatest player of all time that we're playing in a series right now. I'm going to open my mouth about him. And you really don't think that's going to light a fire under the Lakers and under LeBron James's ass? Like, 100% it's going to. It's pissing them off. And he's like I said, he's not the star player. So if I'm a Grizzlies player, I'm saying, shut up.
Right.
What are you doing?
He's not a very good player. And the other thing I have a major problem with is that he doesn't back it up. That he's not talking to the media after the game. Not even backing it up on the court. Like you just mentioned. He's not doing that. But then after the game, when the media wants to talk to him, he wants to talk all this crap before the series, before the game. But after the game, after a tough loss, he's nowhere to be found. So that's a big problem too. And I was listening to this podcast with this former GM of the Marlins. We've talked about him before. The one thing that, front office people and coaches and even other players hate is that if you're going to talk crap, you better back it up and you better talk to the media after the game. Right. And he's not doing it. So he's really the worst of all sides of this. Yeah. He's just the worst.
I mean, I think he's like one of the most disliked players I've ever seen in any sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. But I thought of this analogy and I think it makes perfect sense. Dylan Brooks is like that girlfriend that will go up to another guy in the bar and talk all this crap to him and then go, hey, babe, kick his ass. And you're like, why? Like, why did you even start? Like, I didn't even have a problem with this guy. And she's like, oh, no, but he said this and blah, blah, blah. And then she's saying, screw you and fight my boyfriend. That's Dylan Brooks. He's just like, the guy who's 5 rows back talking crap. And then he's like, all right, yo, go get him. Go get them.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
It's nuts.
If I'm the Grizzlies, like, I don't want him on the team next year.
I don't know how anybody would want him on the team.
Yeah.
He might be talking his way out here.
He better hope he stays in Memphis because is he I said, he's a bad player in my opinion. Like, he's just not an efficient scorer. Is he good enough to stay in the NBA? Yeah. But at that point,
is it too much of a problem in the locker room?
Right. Is he really worth it to be like, all right, let's go make a run at Dylan Brooks? The price is too good to pass up. Like, is he that good of a player to do that? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation over there. Obviously, you have, the John Morant stuff that happened earlier in the season as well. The off the court stuff. He's played well when he's played in the series. No, he missed a game, and of course they won it. Over the past couple of years, they are so good without him.
Yeah.
So good without him. And of course, it's the one game that they won in this series, but he hasn't played bad. So it'll be interesting to see how this series goes. I mean, Austin Reeves has been very good in this series. LeBron had 22 and 20 the other night. Do you think they get it done here in Memphis, or do you think they get it done in LA in a couple of days?
It's tough. I'll say they get it done in LA. I think they'll get it done either way. I think of all the 3-1 series, I think this is the one that I'm probably the least worried about a team coming back from. Mm-hmm. I say that they get it done. And I think just in regards to this Lakers team, we thought it was a possibility that this team could be like a long shot finals team. I really didn't think, it was possible just because it was going to be a really tough road to go through. Watching them play though, they're going to be tough to beat. They can do it. They look like a completely different team than they were a couple months ago. They are just a fundamentally sound basketball team. They're very good at moving the ball. They didn't shoot that great from 3 in game 4, but they are aggressive from the 3-point line. They shoot a lot of threes, Anthony Davis is one of the most dominant bigs in the game still. There and then obviously LeBron James. They are just. Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't even mention D'Angelo Russell, who is a perfect fit for this team. I think that is Jeannie Buss the GM or like I don't
I don't know. No, what is it? It's Palinka still, no?
Palenka or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. He deserves like a medal for what he did in the trade deadline. I mean,
Yeah.
they just went out and got all these pieces and got rid of the junk and completely flipped this roster. It was an amazing job. And I think this team has a legitimate shot to go to the finals.
Yeah,
And
they
win it.
can. And their next series would be very interesting as well because we're going to talk about it in a minute. It would be the winner of the Warriors and the Kings.
Yeah.
And that series is tied up at 2-2. Just a couple of other guys here before we move on to that series. Hachimura, who they acquired from the Wizards. He's played very well in this series as well. Didn't score a lot in their last game, but has scored, and I think he scored so much. It was like they were shocked at how much he scored in the first few games of this playoffs compared to what he was doing in the regular season. And yeah, we brought up Austin Reeves. He's been, I mean, he legitimately, like, we joke about it, but like he's been so important for this team.
Oh yeah, 100%.
One of their leading scorers in the entire series, other than LeBron, I think.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic. You just
we'll
hope AD stays healthy, man. That's the only thing. Like that's like the piano hanging over the Lakers' heads.
He goes down so much. I was watching the game the other night.
He got hit in the balls. I thought he was dead.
I know the amount of times that he's on the ground is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would call a penalty on him for just flopping and going on the ground all the time. Anyway, let's move on to this last series we're going to talk about here. The Warriors and the Kings. Series is tied 2-2. De'Aaron Fox, was he hurt his index finger, fractured his index finger? He's going to play tonight in Game 5 in Sacramento.
The very tip, like Woods.
Oh, yeah.
Pause.
Yeah,
major pause.
Yeah, thank you for that. He's going to play tonight in Sacramento. The home team is undefeated in this series, which is very interesting. Do they light the beam tonight?
You know,
I said that right, by the way.
I thought the Kings were going to win this series. I would like to still think it, but now, you know, I mean, we'll see how Fox plays. That's certainly, you know, he's their number one scorer. It's a major factor. We'll see if he, you know, can play the same with the fractured finger. But if he does, I think the Kings still have this series. Tonight, though, man, like, yeah, they need to. They can't go back to Golden State down
3-2. No,
it's pretty much done. And they almost stole one in game 4, and I you know, that's a huge series altering game right there. You're talking about 3-1 going back to Sacramento or 2-2 like it is right now. Huge. Harrison Barnes couldn't make the shot at the end of the game, which Warriors fans are very used to.
Very nice look for him.
Yeah, but I think that the Kings do have the potential to go very far in this playoffs. And like I said, I picked them to win this series. I know that the Warriors were the more experienced team and blah, blah, blah. But I just thought that this Kings offense was just too fast. It's too athletic. And I think they still got a legit shot, but let's see how De'Aaron Fox's finger holds up. I mean, it's a massive, massive thing that's going on.
You know, the Warriors were the villain. They were the super team for a very long time, you know, especially when they got Durant, you know, they became unlikable at that point. But even when they were unlikable, like, you noticed, like, they share the ball. They're just talented basketball players that are able to make this work when many other superstars would not be able to make this work.
Right.
They were able to do it. And, like, I don't really believe that they were, like, this hated team. And I never hated Steph Curry or anything. But, like, lately, like, they kind of feel like that villain team. And I guess it's just because they've been there for so long and they're always here. But they're really starting to become that team.
Right. I think, you know, I remember being on the Warriors side in that whole Cavs saga. And even it was nice to see them win last year, especially because they played the Celtics. I did not want the Celtics to win. But, you know, I think I think I flipped a little bit. I still love Curry, but, you know, Draymond is Draymond, man. He's just such a pain in the ass.
Draymond's tough. He's tough to like.
And I think Klay Thompson's gotten, like, annoying over the past year, where he's kind of like preaching this, like he sounds like an old head, and all of a sudden he's preaching all this young blood stuff. Like that's kind of like that's how he sounds when he's talking. He sounds like Uncle Drew.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just want to see. The Kings have been starving for so long, man. And, I love De'Aaron Fox. It's been one of my favorite players for a while now. So would really like to see them make a run. And I'm sure the NBA wants the Warriors.
They want Warriors Lakers in
They
the
want
next round.
Warriors Lakers. So I'm sure that they'll not to get all conspiracy theory on you, but I'm sure whatever they could do to make that happen, they might pull some strings.
There's
But,
this documentary on that referee that got, arrested or whatever
yeah.
on Netflix. I was told to watch it last weekend. I might have to check it out. You might be right about that. Like
Yeah.
100%. Like that series would be their highest rated series other than the finals. Might do better than the finals. It could do better than the finals.
I really think that the game of basketball is completely different in the playoffs versus the regular season. Now, obviously, yeah, they're playing more defense, blah, blah, blah. But the free throws, too, like they are not calling everything. They're not just, guys going up there, getting on the line, taking 2 free throws and going back and forth. Like they're letting the game get physical. They're letting them play more defense. They're trying to stop as many free throw attempts. And that's great because that slows down the pace of play. It slows down the game and it's not entertaining to watch. And it's really nice to see that guys are playing more aggressively on defense. And nobody's just going up there taking 25 free throws like a Jimmy Butler or Giannis does or whoever else.
Right. I think I know it's very, very competitive and series are going a little longer, but like the first round takes forever and just the entirety of the playoffs takes so long.
It does.
Like there's got to be something they can do about that. Like a 2-month playoff is like, Jesus Christ.
That is a lot.
But
and in June on like Father's Day, basically.
Yeah. So it's been entertaining. It's been good to watch. And there's 4 games on tonight. So we will enjoy those. We're gonna get some NFL draft coverage, right? And your Jetsies.
Yep.
Very excited about that, huh?
Yep.
All right. So
I don't even know what we're gonna do in the draft at this point, honestly, but we'll talk about it, when we come back.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, it's NFL draft time. And, for me personally, I always get incredibly excited for the draft. And I just don't have that same feel. Maybe it's because my team isn't picking as high as they usually do. But still, like, I'm always into the draft no matter what my team is going to do. So let's kind of discuss it. If you talk to scouts and people around the NFL, they're going to tell you that this is not a talented draft class. It's not like it's been in past years. The quarterbacks obviously are going to highlight this. And I kind of want to start there with this draft. Oh, wait, no. We were going to talk about the Jets first, weren't we?
Yeah. Just skip the whole thing, man.
We were just going to skip the entire New York Jets talk. So let's pause that for a minute. And then let's go to the Jets right here. Because the New York Jets finally acquired Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be their starting quarterback, hopefully for 2 years, but definitely for this next season. And I keep seeing this, that the Jets gave up a lot, and they did. The one thing they didn't do is get any protection for if he retires or not after this season. But at the end of the day, it did not matter what the Jets were going to do. They needed to get this quarterback, and they got Aaron Rodgers. JM, how you feeling?
Well, the one thing I think that I think people are ignoring is a couple things. Number one, yeah, of course, you're right. They did give up a lot. With the whole conditional pick, it's really tough to say that because how are you supposed to guarantee that Rodgers is going to come back for a second year and have a conditional pick? Because the draft next year is before that second year for Rodgers. So you can make a conditional pick that says, oh, if he plays in 2024, the Packers, this will turn into a first round pick, because that first round pick would happen before the 2024 season even started. So you're not going to push it off till 2025. The Packers would not want to do that. And
yeah, but you could say if he retires,
get Rodgers to verbally agree that he's going to play. You know what I mean? So
if he retires before the draft, then it's a first round. It's not a first round pick. If he's not retiring before the draft, then it's a first round pick.
I think though, like, I could be wrong, I'd be shocked if he doesn't play 2 years. I really think that this is going to be more than 1 year. I think that he's got a big chip on his shoulder now. He knows the opportunity to win with this team because, I'm not being biased. This Jets roster right now is in a way better spot than that Packers roster was coming into last year. The weapons alone and the Jets defense is probably better than the Packers, even though the Packers don't have a lackluster defense, but it was the top 5 defense in the NFL last year. So, he's got a better opportunity to win here now. And I think that the Jets, for what they gave up, and we're going to see when they rework the contract, it should be happening today or tomorrow, whenever it's going to happen. I think that's going to tell a lot for what Rodgers' plans might be, that he might be willing to stay more than 1 year. I think he is. And the last thing that I think that a lot of people aren't realizing when you talk about what the Jets gave up, they could afford to give up a first round pick. They've drafted 5 guys in the first round over the past 2 seasons. So they still have their first round pick this year. They still have a second round pick this year, and they're gonna have a first or a second round pick next year. Hopefully it's a second because I want Aaron Rodgers to play all year this year. So a second round pick next year. So you're really just looking at it saying, okay, we gave up one of our first round picks for a Hall of Fame quarterback that hopefully is going to stay more than 1 year, gives us our best quarterback in franchise history that we've ever had, immediately puts us back into relevancy in a big way. They're going to play at least 5 primetime games this year, no doubt. Yeah. Haven't been on Sunday Night Football in 10 years. They're going to probably play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving in Jerry World, which I will be at, which is going to be like the greatest day of my life.
You're going to that?
I'm going. So we're going to Jets Cowboys in Dallas this year, and the Cowboys play on Thanksgiving like they always do, but the programming is they're playing an AFC versus NFC matchup because that's the way that that middle window, like they flip flop it with CBS or whatever. So this year they're set for the AFC NFC matchup, just like the Cowboys just like the Vikings and the Patriots were last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game that the Cowboys are going to have. So the AFC teams they play are all AFC East. They're playing the Bills and the Dolphins on the road. They're playing the Jets and the Patriots at home. Jets are the better team. Patriots played on Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah. It looks like it's going to be the Jets.
It looks like it's going to be Jets Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So that's going to be
that's nuts.
But
they're the talk of.
I don't know if is that wrong of me to say? Like they have all these first round picks over the past couple of years. I don't think it's a big deal that they give up one.
No, it's not at all. I mean, if it crashed and burned where he played 65% of the snaps and they weren't a good team for whatever reason, but that's not going to happen. Right. That's really the only scenario in which it would be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Right. But he plays there in the playoffs, deep run in the playoffs, even if they don't win the Super Bowl, like you're still going to trade that for not having a first round pick. Yeah. And again, it would be a late first round pick anyway. You have your second round pick. Joe Douglas has shown that he can draft very well, and he will find guys in the second. That's a whole draft discussion thing where first round picks, especially late, maybe overrated, whatever. They'll be just fine. Yeah. And you mentioned it. The Jets are the story of the NFL, the biggest story in the NFL with Aaron Rodgers here in New York, 100%. I saw Adam Schefter tweeted out 6 possible primetime games for them this year.
Yeah. And everybody wanted to talk about leverage. That's all we talked about was leverage this, leverage that. Who's got it? Let's be honest, man. Like, now that it's over, at the end of the day, the Packers had the leverage. They still had the guy on their roster. The Jets needed the quarterback. They're the team that needed him. Like, sure, did Aaron Rodgers put a little pressure on them by going to the Pat McAfee show and saying all this stuff? Yeah. Did they need to get him off the books and not have that just dead cap sitting there? The guy sitting on the bench making $60 million? Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you weigh them both out, the Jets were the team who were going to have to overpay a little bit. They didn't have the leverage. They're the ones who had Zach Wilson and this great roster around them and all these fans being promised and these rumors and people out there calling Rodgers a Jet already and, Sauce Gardner burning a cheese head and this and that. Like,
you could have fired everybody if they didn't get him. Yeah. Like, everybody could have been fired on the spot. Like, if Craig Carton was right and the 49ers were actually interested, and it would have to been after the draft because they don't have any picks this year.
Right.
And they stepped in and made a deal for him.
Right.
Douglas, everybody, gone.
Right. That's a really interesting thing too. Is well, I don't know what the hell's going on with the 49ers now with their
Yeah,
quarterback
we're going to talk
situation.
about that in a little
Yeah,
bit. I'm
yeah,
very, very interesting because I have a little bit of a hot take for you. But anyway, enough Jets. We're obviously going to be talking about the Jets for a while. They're going to be the top story in the NFL. They do have a draft pick, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. It's still, a decently high pick, pick number 15 now, and that was the last thing, by the way, they had to get over the hump.
yeah.
The pick swap to move up 2 spots. Okay, whatever. Thanks, Packers. Anyway, let's talk NFL draft. I think we're kind of on the same page with who's going number one, and I can't agree with it more. Bryce Young, who's going to be a Panther. This guy has everything. The only thing he doesn't have is height, but he's got arm strength. He can move. He's great under pressure. I am a huge fan of Bryce Young, and I think he's actually going to a perfect situation in Carolina. I'm still a big Frank Reich fan. They hired a bunch of different coaches, overpaid for coaches. This is what David Tepper is doing. That's the owner of the Panther. He overpaid for a lot of coaches and assistant coaches to build the best possible staff. There's no salary cap when it comes to paying coaches. So, if you have a rich owner, you have the ability to overpay for these coaches. He did that. Josh McCown's QB coach. I'm so high. I would buy stock in the Panthers right now because I think they're going to be winning that division in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think that is a really desirable position or situation you want to be in as a draft prospect, especially when you're the number one overall pick. You're usually going right into a dumpster fire organization, what's going on right now. And obviously the Panthers are no, Steelers or Patriot, or they're no pristine organization by any means. But, like you said, Frank Reich, they've got all these great assistant coaches. That defense is good and young, and they've got some good draft capital now. And I think one of the biggest factors is that division. They can win that division next year. I think that division is up for grabs for just about anybody. The favorite right now is the Derek Carr led Saints. That's a team that who knows what we're going to expect. Carr's going into a new situation. We'll see how he does. He's had an inconsistent career, so I'm not sure how that's going to end up. And then moving out through the rest of the division, I mean, the Bucks, they lost Brady. Baker Mayfield taking over now. Kyle Trask, I'm surprised they didn't give him did they take him in the second round? He must just be like, I guess garbage. I mean,
I remember reading he's really bad, like never improved.
I mean,
never.
I don't know if this is going to sound dumb because, good quarterbacks do come out of the second round. Jalen Hurts was a second round pick, but why do these teams take these guys sometimes? Like Kyle Trask, I'm thinking about another guy just popped into my mind. Malik Willis. They're like, we lost faith in him. I know he wasn't. What was he, third?
He was a third round pick.
Remember? Do you remember? I remember doing mock drafts with you this time last year, and one of us was like about to put Malik Willis as like the number 2 pick, and we were like, nah, like they're not going to draft a quarterback. Never mind. But there was a rumor that he was going to get picked by the Lions at number 2.
Yeah, we may have discussed it. I don't remember.
That was like a thing.
But yeah, I might have. I definitely had him. I think I had him in the first round. I must have.
Yeah.
I'd have to check. But yeah, I thought he was going to be a first round pick. It was a terrible quarterback draft. The rest of the draft ended up being very good. A lot of talent in that draft. But yeah, very interesting. Now, speaking of Malik Willis and another quarterback, like there are a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. Now I read today that a lot of these teams that need quarterbacks are just waiting on Caleb Williams from USC, who's going to be next season. The Washington Commanders are not taking a quarterback this year. They're going to let Sam Howell go and possibly wait for Williams next year. But there are a lot of quarterbacks, still talented quarterbacks in this draft. There's a lot of controversy right now with C.J. Stroud and the test that he took, which I'm blanking on the name of the test, but
the Wonderlic or the other one?
It's a different test that examines how you are under pressure, and he did terrible on it. Terrible.
Right.
Will Levis is an interesting guy. Anthony Richardson from Florida is another very interesting prospect. And even Hendon Hooker, who, if he didn't tear his ACL at Tennessee this season, a lot of people say he would be, kind of that Anthony Richardson type guy that in this draft, and be considered a lock to go in the first round.
Yeah.
Do you think all 5 or even 4 take out Hooker? Do you think all 4 of these guys are like? Do you think all 4 of these guys are like top 15 picks, and then all 5 of them first round picks?
Yeah, I do. Maybe not Hooker. Maybe Hooker slips into the second. You might see a team trading up in the late first round to get him. I don't know if he gets picked in the teens. I feel like that would be a bit high, but if these teams fall in love with the quarterback, they fall in love with the quarterback. I think the Bucks are a possibility at 19. Um, you know, it's it's really weird thinking about this class because, like you said, like it's not considered to be a very good class, but the quarterbacks are. I don't want to say I don't know if loaded is the word, but
Formidable.
they're definitely the buzz. Like this does not happen every year where there's like 4 quarterbacks who could go on the top 4. Like
Right.
that is not a normal thing at all. I don't think that's ever even happened. It's not going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think obviously if the draft order stays the way it is, it's impossible. The Cardinals are not going to take a quarterback, but I think they're obviously a major trade down candidate, the Cardinals. Um, just looking through the rest of this draft, I think the Texans are nuts if they don't take a quarterback. I think that, you mentioned Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams can only go to one team. How many of these teams you have to tank? And if you have the number 1 pick, you are taking Caleb Williams. There's no way you're trading up. No team is going to be able to trade up to that first overall pick unless it's a special circumstance with a team that just drafted a quarterback that,
Right.
Now still has the first overall pick. Sure. But even like let's say the Chicago Bears this year, let's say Caleb Williams was the number 1 pick in this year's draft. And the Chicago Bears had the first overall pick.
They would take Caleb Williams.
They would take Caleb Williams. Like Justin Fields, they still have hope in him. They're trying to build around him, but Caleb Williams is like that level of prospect where it's like, you got to take Caleb Williams.
I would have done it with Young this year. I would have taken Bryce Young. I'll stand by that.
Right. I just think sure, the Texans are used to picking at the top of the draft, but there's a lot of things that could go the wrong way for you in this draft. I mean, even like you look at teams like, the Falcons, they were probably going to have a high pick this year. They won a couple games. That the division got weaker than we thought. Now they're picking 8th overall. So the Texans, that division, the Titans are expected to take a step back. The Jaguars are probably going to take over that division, but we don't know how great the Jaguars are going to be. They might win 3 games in their division next year. They might beat the Colts twice and beat the Titans, and now all of a sudden they're picking 5th overall, and you have no shot at getting Caleb Williams anymore. I just think when you have this opportunity to take a quarterback, and I think that unless they just don't like any of these prospects, I think they could get a very good quarterback. You're talking about you between Stroud and Richardson. I don't think Levis is really a possibility for them at 2, but you could still get a franchise quarterback, a guy who could be your franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years with this pick. This doesn't come around every year.
From what I've read, they were all in love with Bryce Young. And since the talk that, it's basically a guaranteed lock that Young is going to be a Panther, it seems that the Texans are less likely to take a quarterback. That is their guy. And this is the question that you have to ask. Okay. Because yes, you might like Richardson, you might like Stroud, whoever it is. But they might view Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech or, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. They might view those guys as gold jacket type players. Let's quote Dave Gettleman when he told you that Saquon was a gold jacket player. If they believe that one of those defensive players is a gold jacket player and you're not in love with one of these quarterbacks where, the guy that you are in love with is going to the other team, I think you sit there. D'Amico Ryan's defensive coach. I think you sit there and you take the defensive player.
Well, then trade down. Trade down at that point, though.
Yeah, but where are you going to trade down to?
You want to trade down?
You want to trade down to 4? Okay.
Yeah.
But then you're not getting your pick because the Cardinals are going to take one of these 3 guys.
Okay, but they might have great grades for more than one guy, and then they could say whoever we get.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's a very interesting situation here with the Texans because last week, if you asked me, I would have said you're crazy. How are you not going to take a quarterback? But they might not love one of these quarterbacks. You don't force yourself.
Exactly. You can't force a situation. Them to take one. I get it, but that's the only excuse they have. If it's that's it. If they don't love any of these quarterbacks, then sure, take a defensive player. But if they really like a quarterback and they're just like, you know what, Nah, like Caleb Williams is coming out next year. D'Amico Ryan's just got here. This team's got a while to go. Let's take a defensive player. Let's like set the foundation, which I like. I like, giving these rookie quarterbacks something to play around, not just throwing them out there in the fire. But you don't pick number 2 every year, and you don't get that many quarterbacks coming out of the class that have this potential. And if they really like one of these quarterbacks, they better pick them.
No,
That's it.
and Ryans, I think, is going to be a really good coach. He went there for a reason. He could have went to a lot of other teams. A lot of teams wanted him. They've improved this offseason. They're going to improve a lot in this draft. So there is a chance. I don't think they're going to be the bottom feeders of this division this year. Like, I think they're going to win games. I think, like you mentioned, I think they win 5 or 6 games this year.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be, a top, 5 pick possibly next season. So, yeah, it's tough. Are you able to acquire a quarterback elsewhere? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what they do, because if you asked me last week, I would have called you crazy for thinking they're not going to take a quarterback. How about a team that not many people expect, but you think they're going to take a quarterback early? Because I got a team and I got a player, I got a fit, like, easy.
So wait, sorry, you said a team that is going to take a quarterback early that people might not expect?
Yeah. Like, I got my team.
I'll let you go first on this, because
I think Seattle takes Richardson. If Richardson is there, if Richardson is not picked by the Colts, I think Anthony Richardson is a stone cold lock to go to the Seahawks.
Why though? I mean, what are they going to do?
Sense.
Keep him on the bench for a couple of years?
He needs that. Anthony Richardson is not a guy you start day one. Right. Anthony Richardson is a guy that I wouldn't even dress in year one. So
I mean, they can afford to do it. They got 2 first-round picks, so
they got 2 first-round picks. You have Geno. They've improved this team. I mean, they've had so many picks over the years. Although they did lose the one to the Jets, they've made very good draft picks, I should say. And they have the extra one this year, like you mentioned. I would take Richardson, sit him down. He's in a good situation, right? Geno had a great year under this offensive coordinator and Pete Carroll. Let him learn from, these coaches. I think this makes a ton of sense.
I'm just looking at this order. It's just crazy to see them at 20 and then them also at 5, and that's the pick they got from Denver. If you last year after that trade happened, you'd be like, oh, 20 is that Denver pick, and they're picking 5th overall just from their pick, and it's the opposite. It's just crazy. But I guess that I like that take. I think it's a solid take. The only other team I could see doing something is the Raiders at 7. Let's say it's an extreme. I don't even know if you could call it an extreme scenario. Like the draft. I feel like this happens every year where we're saying, are there going to be quarterbacks who go 1 through 4 or whatever? And it ends up 2 get picked in the top 5. And now these guys are slipping and sliding. We had a similar scenario in 2018 with Allen and Darnold and Rosen and all those guys. Raiders at 7, they just signed Jimmy G to a 3-year deal. I don't think that's going to stop them from drafting a quarterback if they really like him. No. I think that also something you need to factor in is Jimmy G going to play those 3 years out healthy? He really can't stay on the field any season anymore. So I think that quarterback would certainly get an opportunity. And even if you had to bench Jimmy G or trade him or cut him or whatever, they didn't sign him to a mega deal. They could get out of it. So I think that I like that Seahawks take. I think the Raiders are another possibility, though.
I've also seen possibly, this was early on, too, maybe the Lions. I don't agree with that. But the Lions could go quarterback if they fell in love with somebody and he fell.
Yeah.
Fit. Well, I think the Lions are in the best spot out of any team in the league. Like, you just had a great season, for them, a great season. I think they're going to be fantastic this year. And with the quarterbacks that are projected to go early, they're going to be looking at themselves. They're either going to have, a pick of Carter, Anderson, or Wilson, one of those guys, or the top cornerback fall to them. They're in a perfect spot for a team that needs to improve that defense, because the offense was good last season. For them to have to improve this defense, I think they're in the best possible spot of any team in the draft at number 6.
Yeah, no, they could really add a lot. I definitely agree with that. I'd say they were definitely going to be one of my picks for the team with the best spot. See the Eagles, man. You just came off a Super Bowl. you have a top 10 pick now, and you have your 30th overall pick. So it's kind of weird seeing that. I keep saying, like, why do they have 30? But I forgot about the whole Dolphins situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you just came off a Super Bowl, or a Super Bowl appearance, I should say. Super Bowl appearance. You just signed your quarterback to a mega extension. You got to worry about him anymore. And, they lost a couple pieces over the offseason, but all those core guys that you really think of when you think about the Eagles are still there.
Yeah.
And adding a top 10 talent at whatever, I don't buy the Bijan Robinson stuff. I don't. I think that's crazy if they take him 10. I really think that's insane.
They have so many ways they can go in this draft because their defense is getting older, especially on the defensive line, and their offensive line is definitely getting older. So they could go there and, it just makes sense and it'll be a good pick.
Yeah.
Or they can really hit that home run and have just one of the more unstoppable offenses we've seen in a while. Like, that is tough to pass up.
I think you're looking more 30th, though, for that running back pick.
He's not going to be there.
I know he's that level of prospect, but I don't know why we do this with running backs every year. Like, Breece Hall was one of the highest graded running backs they've had in a long time. Jets took him at 34 last year. Then you have Saquon, who's the freaking second overall pick. Like, I
don't agree with this. I hate taking running backs early, but they might be an extreme situation where they have so much on this team. Like, if there was any team that I would say take a running back in the top 10, it would be the Eagles.
Yeah.
It would.
That running attack would just be crazy.
Could you imagine trying to stop that offense with the two receivers they have and Hurts who can run and
Goddard, the low line? We know
it would be impossible to stop this offense. So they could do that, or they could take a defensive lineman, which is perfectly fine. It would make a ton of sense, which I actually think they're probably going to do. I think they'll probably take a defensive lineman, linebacker type situation here, but they can also go corner. They can go corner.
Believe it a little bit. Now I'm starting to believe the Bijan. Like, I don't know if I agree with it, but I'm thinking Howie Roseman kind of flexes his muscles a little here, and
it makes sense. Yeah. Another team, quick. The Titans, I think, are going to take a quarterback. If there was going to be a team,
I don't think they are.
I think
they are.
If you brought it up before with Willis, I think they could trade up possibly, into like, the late 10s there, 6 through 10. They have 11, or if Levis falls to them, or even Hooker, possibly, Tennessee connection there.
Yeah.
Does that make a ton of sense?
I don't know. I just feel like with Vrabel and the way that team operates, I don't know if they want to take one. I know, Tannehill has a lot of rumors about him getting traded and everything like that. And Malik Willis, they've gave up hope or whatever, but
they got no future.
There could be a lot of smoke too. You know how these teams operate. They could be just throwing smoke everywhere that all these reports are coming out.
Yeah, but what do they have? Like, what does that team have going for them?
Nothing. They honestly, I don't know if this is going to sound like dumb, but that year when they were the 1 seed 2 years ago and they lost in the playoffs, like, that was when they lost to the Bengals. I hate saying this because being competitive is always the best thing. You always want to be the best you could be, but like, that probably in hindsight was worse for them because that roster was depleted. It was wearing down. Tannehill's, it was probably time for him to go. They needed to make some changes. And they went out last year hoping to compete again and be a Super Bowl contender. And they weren't. And now I think they're in a really ugly spot.
Well, they did make changes on their own. I mean, they traded Brown away.
Yeah.
They didn't want to re-sign him. Like, they made changes on their own, even after doing that, even after being the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I don't know if that was the worst thing for them, but like, they got nothing right now. So if there's a quarterback they like, if they like Levis and he falls, they should absolutely take him. The wide receivers are very interesting to me because, you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, you have Quentin Johnson from TCU, you have Zay Flowers from Boston College, who apparently is the best receiver in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Njigba's interesting because if you talk to the guys like Olave and Wilson and those really great wide receivers from Ohio State, they will tell you he was better than them. Right. Like, in college, he was better than I was. They're on the record saying that. So I don't know what to believe with him because a lot of people believe he's going to be a bust. Some believe he's the best receiver in the draft and should be taken early. I am way in the middle with him, but he's a very, very interesting situation.
He really is. I don't know. I just don't know what's gonna happen with him. It's like, you had the Jets at 13, and that was a real possibility. Now you have the Packers at 13. They need a receiver, which, by the way,
So funny. I'm
so
praying that
funny.
happens.
If they take a freaking receiver, like, I said that to my brother yesterday. I'm like, that's gonna be hysterical if you guys take a receiver the first year Love's there. You didn't do it for Rodgers the whole time. He was like, oh, but we still drafted good receivers in the later rounds. Like, yeah, okay,
No.
you did. I'm
If
sure a
they
major part of that too was Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback. That's a nice way to unlock your potential. But to do that for the first year would be so funny. But I don't want to talk crazy here, but I don't think it's crazy. I think you might see the Jets trade up. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they jump in front of the Packers.
Is he worth trading up for?
That's the thing. I don't know. And honestly, I want the Jets to take a lineman. I think we're good at receiver. Like, we made some nice signings. I think a receiving core of Wilson, Corey Davis, Hardman, and Lazard is plenty good enough.
Yeah, so do I.
And even maybe they take one in the second. I don't know what they're going to do there. They just re-signed Connor McGovern, so center. I don't know if they're going to do that anymore. But I think they might trade up.
I would not. I wouldn't. If I was a Jets, this is not the situation I would trade up for. I don't know. Maybe go tackle if I'm the Jets.
Yeah.
But they can go a lot of different directions.
Yep, you can. All right.
Are we done here?
I think we're done.
Giants. I don't know what the Giants do late in the draft.
Yeah.
They need a center. It wouldn't shock me if they traded out, but we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting draft. We're gonna see tomorrow, so it'll be fun. Anything else you got to say?
Nah, I'm just ready to go.
Ready to go. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the football.